Welcome back to another episode of Root Notes.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah, glad you guys are with us. Thanks for listening and following along. So, David, you left a meeting the other day and you went on a bit of a rant.
Which is rant strong.
No, well, for you it was a rant, and I think we're going to hear some of it coming up here in a moment. Yeah. No, you said the phrase "reinvent the wheel." Let's not reinvent the wheel. We hear that all the time. Mm-hmm. You never want to hear it again. That's a pretty.
I never want to hear it again.
That's a pretty strong dismissal of a pretty commonly and mostly innocuous phrase.
But all right, so here it is. So it is. I would argue. Not this innocent phrase, cliché. Now, you and I have a lot of fun with these cliches anyway. So when we get a chance to work with organizations, doing strategic planning, we have little games that we set up as transition things.
That's right.
That specifically make fun of these cliches.
Jargon and cliches.
The elephant in the room.
Get your ducks in a row.
Yeah, low hanging fruit, all this stuff. And I'm not railing against all of them.
Not yet.
But I'm just, so here's my objective. In the next little bit, listener, I hope that you will never be sitting in a meeting and hear somebody around the table go, well, let's not reinvent the wheel, and just take that at face value and nod along. I want you to hear that is some of the laziest thinking that a leader could give you.
Well, that's, wow, laziest.
I'm telling you, I'm done with this.
Man, okay.
Let me explain why. Unless you are literally talking about the creation of a wheeled thing, and most of us are not when you utter those words.
Right.
What are you really saying? What are the assumptions being made by this phrase?
Let's not reproduce effort. It's effort. It's about someone else has come up with a solution already. We don't have to really deconstruct this or think about it.
That is the assumption.
Right.
Somebody else has come up with a solution to this already. It's like a wheel. We don't need to reinvent it. That's already been done. And that's the assumption that check yourself in that meeting. I bet it's not true. And here's why. When you say, let's not reinvent the wheel, and you're sitting around a boardroom, you're probably trying to solve some systems thing, some culture problem, something that actually has a lot of moving parts. And the question is, how is it that you know that somebody else has solved this problem? Now, I think a lot of people, when they're saying this, just assume, hey, and people will say this in meetings too. They'll say, we're not the only people that have faced this. Also hear lazy leadership when you hear that phrase come out of people's mouths. And here's why. What they are saying to you is, we are the same as everybody else. If I go find some solution that somebody else has put out, that's going to work for us. Now, brother, if we know anything in the work that we've been doing with organizations and communities, that ain't the way to come up with solutions that matter. Here's the problem with that phrase. We aren't trying to solve a problem that somebody else has already tackled and solved. We're trying to solve our problem. And the phrase, the cliche, is the illusion of sameness in ways that it shouldn't exist.
That's a pretty damning testimony against the phrase. Now, let me push back and say, okay, I can get with the fact that not every situation is the same, not every organization is the same, not every community is the same. And so in the sense that we have differences in different contexts, we may face slightly different challenges. But is it not also irresponsible not to look and say, what has been done here that has been effective?
I would go so far as to say, not only is it not irresponsible not to look, there are a lot of knots in that sentence.
I'm lost in the knots.
Irresponsible not. Not only am I saying you can responsibly not look, let me say it in the affirmative.
There's a quote.
But it's probably going to benefit your team, your organization, your community, not to spend a lot of time looking. Now, I want to back this up to a place where I did not believe this. I used to have a job where I worked for the state. And I worked for the state with all the counties in our state doing something called implementation science.
That's right.
Now, the whole idea of implementation science, in fact, I was a presenter at the initial global implementation science meeting. It happened in our state.
Yeah. That's been a minute.
Yeah. So I'm presenting at this conference. And the whole idea is innovations normally take about 17 years to diffuse into mainstream adoption. And the idea of implementation science is that we could engineer a way that these evidence-based practices could be scaled up. We literally had whole chapters about scaling up best practices, could be scaled up across communities faster and across organizations faster. Now, the problem with that is that they threw into this implementation science literature a little phrase that talked about the need for adaptive leadership. It was just a part of it. You got reams and reams of literature about the organizational drivers and the competency drivers and all these things. And then one little part of it is you need adaptive leadership. Well, what is that talking about? Well, brother, it's all the adaptive leadership part. Because the adaptive leadership part is going, okay, but how do we take these things that have been supposedly, quote unquote, proven in other contexts
and adapt
them for our context? Because what we know from the research is without adaptation, those same practices
won't work.
So every time you're sitting in a meeting and somebody says to you, we're not the first people who have, we're not the only ones dealing with this.
Yeah.
Let's go see what other people are doing. Let's not reinvent the wheel. What you really should be doing in that moment is going why are you trying to pretend like the whole enchilada is not figuring out how to make this work for us?
Wow. So I want to talk about diffusions for a second then, because what you just brought up is, oh my gosh, you know the history, right, of diffusions of innovations, the reason and how it was developed as a sort of theory to explain how innovations diffuse into a community. But it started out with farmers, right? They were trying to figure out why farmers were, that's where I'm going. Farmers were not using this new hybrid corn seed that had a greater yield, right? And so ultimately, the diffusions of innovations theory was about why is this not happening, right? And the fix to it ultimately was the cooperative extension agency, and that is you get local folks with local wisdom and connection, and then they will trust those folks, and they will then adopt the innovation, and all is well, right? So how does that because that seems like the right move, right?
Oh, I think there's a lot about that that's actually making my point.
Yeah.
So when you go, okay, cooperative extension proves the point that we don't need to reinvent the wheel of crops and best practices around agriculture. And then you go on to explain this community by community implementation strategy that relied, hear me now, not on a textbook, not on a PowerPoint deck, not on the adoption of these things by some standard technical guide, but what did you say? Relationships?
Yeah.
Where the individuals involved who knew each other, knew the context,
Right.
and therefore communicated in the language of place.
Mm-hmm.
The adoption of these practices that have been proven elsewhere. You're making my point. There's a lot that has to be done, that it goes a long way beyond let's see what other people are doing. And my frustration with the way in which this short circuits the creativity, the sort of ownership of solution for place, is that most often what ends up happening. Let's take it in higher education, for instance.
Okay.
You sit around a table and you go, we're not the only university dealing with this. Let's go see how they created their policy around this. And you go get somebody's policy and you read 5 other universities' policies. Now, I want to take just a second.
We've been in those meetings.
Of course.
We've done that, yeah.
Now, of course we've been in those meetings. Everybody who works at a university who's listening to this podcast, you've been in those meetings. So zoom out from that, buddy.
Yeah.
We're all just staring around going, let's cheat off of their paper when they're cheating off of somebody else's paper for all we know. And oh, by the way, if you're going to cheat off somebody's paper, you should have some idea that they got the right answers.
Right. That's exactly right. So
what makes you think their policy is working for them?
Yeah. We all have maybe got it wrong. We're all off by the same amount because we're all using the same ruler. Who knows if it's accurate?
That's my point.
But have you seen the meme? And it comes from comic books. So I don't know if you'll know this, but the 3 Spider-Men pointing at each other.
Oh, I'm slightly, all right, so I'm not that kind of nerd, but
yeah,
I'm barely aware of this,
yeah,
but entirely through memes, and I don't really know why there are 3 Spider-Man, if that helps.
The context in that way doesn't matter, but they're the same. They're all 3 Spider-Man, and they're all like, pointing at each other, going, huh. And this is just a circular sort of thing, right? like, well, you're Spider-Man, I'm Spider-Man, you're Spider-Man. I'm a university, we have the same policy. Yes. You're a university, we have the same policy. I want to get to an example, but one of the questions I have for you is, okay, you're very passionate about this. I get it. I'm with you. I believe you're right about this to an extent. Is there a line? Is there a stop point to this? Because there are technical things, right? There are technical things that need to be replicated exactly as such.
So example.
Well, technical things: a microphone, a computer chip, part for a car.
Yeah.
So replication is not always.
If you're making widgets,
right? If you're making widgets, replication and accuracy, and sameness is not bad. So I don't
precision,
right. So I don't want people to walk away from this thinking, yeah, we should start from scratch on everything. Like that's not what you're arguing.
It's not, but err on the side of that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because most of I don't know how you came to listen to this podcast, but my guess is that you're trying to solve the kinds of problems that the organizations and communities we work with are trying to solve, and is pretty much never that.
Yeah.
We're pretty much never working on how to create precisely engineered widgets.
Mm-hmm. I make that argument all the time that higher ed is not producing widgets.
That's it.
Yeah, and when we talk about efficiency and all those sort of things that just mind-numbing, right? Like those are not conversations we should be having about the work of higher education.
That's it.
Right.
And here's, so why, because I actually don't get all that passionate about things that don't matter. So I'm telling you, I think this cliche is a problem.
This is hilarious.
So why? And here's why. I think it contributes to the problems that rural communities face. When rural leaders are lazy and go, well, we're not the only people dealing with this. Let's see what other people are doing. A lot of times the most accessible solutions are solutions that have not been researched in rural places like yours. They have not been implemented and scaled up with the constraints that your community are facing. They're not strategies that have been created with your cultural context in mind. And when that happens, we have it really is a problem, because what happens is we end up rolling out solutions that actually were never a good fit for your community. And as a result, we have two problems. One, that you roll out the solution, it doesn't work, and you erode public trust in the agencies that are trying to bring solution for exactly the opposite reason that cooperative extension worked.
Right. So I go on a similar sort of tirade in class about this, because I believe that systems that we have designed to fund things perpetrate this all the time. So in a rural area, if you're looking for grant funding, if you're looking to address an issue, right, to build community, whatever you're trying to do, somewhere in that grant application, you're gonna likely start citing the effectiveness of this solution in previous places and communities. Like, you are pulling from the evidence base and trying to make a case that this thing is proven, therefore give us the money so we can do it, and you can rest assured that we're doing something that is reliable and accurate and proven and all those things. And you're arguing, and I argue very often, that just the funding structure alone just perpetuates this issue of reinventing the wheel, or not reinventing the wheel every time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because what reads as doing your homework is actually the opposite, because it is not hard to find a million examples of something in our world.
Right.
It's hard to figure out if any of that makes sense for you.
Yeah.
And so when you're sitting around a boardroom, and somebody in the room says, let's not reinvent the wheel, don't hear that as efficiency. Hear that as somebody who is unable to face the reality that your organization, your community, like the things that make this moment might not be the same as anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's hard work to face that reality and build solutions. But we should hold ourselves accountable to building solutions that make sense for that reality.
I think that's true, and you're coming hard at the leaders who are doing this. I'm gonna give you credit for that, because there are folks who are gonna listen to this podcast, and they're literally gonna say, I said that this morning.
Yeah.
So I want to give some grace and some encouragement to folks that there is hope, right? Like, you can change your perspective on this, and and David's saying you definitely should immediately
change immediately. Yeah, it's not as if I haven't ever said this. Probably somebody listening to this podcast remembers a time that
I may have it on video. I may.
So if you are about to say it, I hope there's a catch. Now, I hope you go, wait, should I say this? And I hope it's for the reason, like, you like to make fun of me a lot, because one of my life mantras that I think you actually gave me, but I like it, is that I do things with pride the hardest way possible.
Every time. The absolute hardest, most brute force way possible. If it can, yes, that's how you do it.
I run distance.
Barefoot.
I just ran a half again for, I don't know, a dozen times. How did I run it? Barefoot. Why? Because there's something to be gained by doing it the hard way. Now, that's trivial.
I don't know what's to be gained.
We can do a whole podcast about barefoot running, and I'm all about that.
Oh, God.
But when you're working in communities and you're like, what do you want to do? Start with a blank slate. I can tell you what I know. And that is, when people are now reaching out to me, which happens sometimes now, and wanting advice about their own strategic plans for responding to the overdose crisis, for instance, because people are starting to take note of some of the results that we have gotten from the work. And they say to me, we'd like to use your plan as a starting point. I'm not selfish about it. It's freely available. Go on the solveharnett.org. You can download it for yourself. is a bad idea. And I tell you it's a bad idea, straight up. And it's not a bad idea because I want to keep all the good stuff to myself. It's a bad idea because how did we do it? We started with a blank sheet of paper. So you can't take the product that's at the end of it and say we're going to do it like this.
Yeah.
What if you want to do it like we did it?
Start with a blank sheet.
You have to start with a blank sheet of paper. You have to start with a blank sheet of paper because you're going to need to do a whole lot of listening before you ever know what to write as strategy. And if you don't start with a blank sheet, if you start with somebody else's from Harnett County or Baltimore or Boston or wherever it is, if you start with them in mind, it's going to be really hard for you to let go of that and do the process that your community or your organization needs from you as a leader. So I'm not coming for you if you said that at your morning meeting today. But what I am saying is hesitate before you say it the next time, because you might invite your people into a process that's going to mean more.
It's great advice. I will say it's a scary thought to start from a blank sheet of paper for a lot of folks. Because one of the reasons, you say it's lazy leadership. Okay, arguably, yes. I also think it's out of a lack of understanding what you're bringing to the table in terms of your capacity. You may just look at it and go, I don't really know anything about this. I don't know how to solve it, and I'm grasping for anywhere to start. So what advice do you give to someone who's in that position, who's like, this is a problem I know virtually nothing about, so I feel like I need to be grounded in somewhere to start. So let's see what other people have done.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. But I also know from experience that when we come in to work with, now we have done a bunch of strategic plans for all kinds of different organizations.
Right.
So the truth is, if you wanted us to come in and answer the questions, write a plan for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your plan look real good.
Yeah.
Like when you can come in and we don't need to ask any questions, your plan is going to look real good.
It's going to be great.
And we hardly do that at all.
No.
And we come in, and even if we're working with public health, we're academic public health people.
Yeah.
And even if we're working with a local public health department, we're going to come in and ask questions, not answer them. Why? Because the truth is, and we say this to folks that we're working with all the time, the wisdom is actually in the room, or we need to solve that problem first.
We do. Yeah, you've got the wrong people at the table. As a matter of fact, we always start out these conversations when we're talking about planning with any organization, but particularly public health organizations, about who is at the table. Because we spend a lot of time talking about that, right? Because everything that's going to follow from here is going to be derived from that.
That's it. And so you want to talk about a good use of your time. You're talking about what's a responsible use of your time. Don't go doing the homework on what all these other organizations that are not you have come up with as their answers. A responsible use of time, a meaningful use of time, is saying, have we gotten the wisdom that we need into this process?
So now...
And then, and I'm going to give you a cautionary tale that's on the other side of this. It has been my experience that more often than not, when you go and you find these solutions that were not tailored for you, did not have your context in mind, trying to even just wrap your head around that or change the strategic plan to fit your context, or definitely in implementing the program, it's a frustrating thing to try to do. Because it's not playing to your assets.
That's right.
And it can leave you feeling as an organization or as a community that you are in deficit.
Yeah.
If you start with a blank sheet of paper and you invite the wisdom into the room, you are way more likely to do a process where you go, we have got so many tools, we've got so many capacities. If we tweak this or that, we're going to actually expand our capacities. It puts you in the position of doing asset-based problem solving. And if you go to copy off of somebody else's paper, it can feel really frustrating because they're writing from their assets,
right,
not yours.
Well, that's exactly how we approach planning. I mean, we spend all that time, let's get the team right. Let's get the wisdom in the room. Let's make sure we're getting the right voices and all the voices involved. And then we take sort of this appreciative inquiry approach to it. One of the very first things we do, we're like, let's talk about your big wins. Let's talk about your history. Let's talk about what you got. Let's talk about the people in this room.
Yeah.
And we don't just ask the question and then move on. We spend the day unpacking who we've got here and why this is so important that you're at the table. And so now we're giving folks something like, okay, I said it this morning, I feel attacked. This is where you can start now, right? Go back to the drawing board, look at your team, look who's in the room, get the wisdom in the room, and let's start talking about the assets that you have, the capacity that you have. I want to bring it back to the technical conversation just very quickly, simply because I've done some of this. So you may remember it, you may not. In a couple of instances, I've worked with graduate students and even some of my students who have long graduated and are clinical providers and public health specialists. And we've done readmission risk studies. And what we do is we go to the local system, the local hospital system, and there are off-the-shelf, ready to implement readmission risk models for things like heart failure, all-cause readmission risk, heart failure readmission risk stuff that hits the bottom line of a hospital if they get readmitted after being discharged for heart failure. And these off-the-shelf solutions are based off massive data sets, national data.
There's a reason to have
it's statistically powerful and all these sorts of things. We actually published a study that took the local instance where we started from scratch and determined the specific predictors for readmission for a community hospital. And it was far more predictive and different than what came off the shelf for sort of the national products that were out there.
And none of this should be surprising, right?
No, it doesn't.
This immediately makes sense to you when you step back and think about it.
Yeah.
The problem is it also makes sense to you when somebody throws out the cliche and goes, yeah, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We all nod around the table and we go, yeah, that makes sense. The problem is that metaphor doesn't apply. We are not trying to solve a solved problem. Almost every case, your organization, your community is trying to solve a problem that actually has not been solved. That's why you're talking about it.
Yeah.
And so don't let lazy thinking short circuit the opportunity to do what you just described.
Right. I think that's great advice. And I have an 8:30 meeting in the morning that I feel certain. I mean, I might actually place a bet on it on here that this is going to be said.
Right.
So when it does,
predictable.
So when it does, I will
call them out.
I'm going to call you, I'm going to call you and put you on speaker and say, David, somebody did it. Get them.
Just record me as like one of those little buttons you can press. This is lazy thinking.
Red button, lazy thinking.
Lazy thinking.
Oh man. You've really given us something to think about. What cliche do you want to attack next week?
That could be fun, actually. That might be a recurring because we have a lot.
Fruit.
Yeah, we have a lot of those to play with, and some of them really don't serve as well.
So
that's worth thinking about.
I'm actually there now. I'm already thinking about low-hanging fruit and how I want to dismantle that one. So maybe that's what we'll do next.
Like it. All right, so before we go, we like to end these with a detour we're taking. And so I think it's your turn. So what is something that you've been into lately that listeners might also enjoy?
I don't know if it's a detour, but it's definitely something worth tossing on the grill. And lots of folks like grilled vegetables and asparagus.
I think in a previous episode, I was like, why is it all about food?
That's right. Well, because we're always recording this and it's late. I need to eat dinner.
Okay, fair enough.
No.
All right. So on the grill, go for it.
So grilled asparagus. Here's the deal. Just hit it with a little olive oil, just a little salt and pepper, right? Get the char on it, but don't cook it too much. It's got to have the crunch. Now, You and I have done that before, and we'll eat them straight from the grill. Like they won't even make it to the table.
No, asparagus is
great.
I mean, God's gift to humanity.
Yeah. So it's summertime, folks. If you're not at the grill working with the vegetables, start with some asparagus. And I'm telling you, my kids who are 12 and 16. Asparagus is not the top of their list, right? Like this is not the thing they're hoping is going to hit the table.
Right.
But I thought we were going to have to arm wrestle over it. Like,
okay,
like
all right,
they just devoured it, and so I'm into the asparagus.
Now
so
here's
much.
The question.
So.
Hold on. Here's the question. Asparagus. I feel like when we were kids, asparagus was just these big, thick stalks, right? But now I feel like it's more often the case that there are these tiny little.
Don't get those.
Okay, so you're talking about the big.
I'm talking about the big ones, and don't get the ones that look too woody and are dried out. They also have purple asparagus, which is tasty as well. Wow. But
I think they have white asparagus.
There's white asparagus also.
There's a lot going on in the asparagus world.
I'm telling you.
This is I don't know if this is a detour or a rabbit hole that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's more of a rabbit hole. But highly recommend hit the
rabbit food hole.
Yeah, hit the asparagus. Literally, I bought some more for tonight. So when we're done with
you just did this and you're going to do it again.
2 nights ago. Yes.
That's hilarious.
So it's in the fridge, and I'm definitely going to toss it on the grill right after this.
Asparagus in the fridge. I might cook it tonight as well.
There we go. See? All asparagus.
Right. That is hilarious. Well, thanks, my friends. Hopefully you have access to asparagus. You can enjoy this detour we're taking. It's a good conversation. Next time, speaking of barbecuing and all this, I think the next episode is a campfire chat with our friend Adam English.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about a different book that you haven't read. So I look forward to that.
Maybe I've not read it. We'll see. We'll
never read it. Let's be honest.
We'll see. Campfire chat, maybe. We'll definitely be outside. It's June in North Carolina.
We'll be sweating,
David. So that campfire will be adding to the discomfort, but we'll at least hang outside.
Maybe I shouldn't wear a suit to this one.
I would not recommend a suit at all. Yeah.
All right, friends. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you up the road.